Welcome to BWI Live. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. We've got a full show for you today. The off-season is in full swing, but there's still plenty to discuss when it comes to Penn State football and discussing all the things we've learned from spring football, both during camp and since camp has broken. We'll get into those things today, plus your questions in the BWI Mailbag. So any thoughts, any questions you have during the show, we'll save the best ones for the end of the show to put in the mailbag. But unfortunately, starting today on a bit of a somber note, Dr. Wayne Sebastianelli, the director of sports medicine for Penn State Athletics, has passed away this week. You use terms like tighten in the community or any of those things seldomly, and like you should use those, but I think that properly describes Dr. Sebastianelli and his impact not only on State College, but on the football team and Penn State in general. So Nate, if you wouldn't mind just giving for those who don't know him, a guy who's probably behind the scenes for a lot of average football fans, who was Dr. Wayne Sebastianelli?
Yeah, he, most importantly, he did my knee when I tore my ACL.
That's
so
what's first on his resume, I'm sure.
I did get that question this week, believe it or not, Nate. I did get
whether or
that
not
question
he,
from someone. Yes.
Whether or not he did. Yeah, right.
Yes, specifically.
No, so yeah, it stinks. It stinks. He obviously was a doctor with Penn State athletics and Penn State football around on the site, right? If you went to Penn State games, you've seen him. Was a close confidant and friend to Joe Paterno and the Paterno family. So just has this really lengthy history, and it's one of those things where everybody in the community, right? Not everybody, but like a lot of people have a connection to him, right? Just have a little piece of him in their lives in some way, shape, or form in this area, right? Because of all of the healthcare that he provided, right? I mean, it wasn't just the Penn State athletics teams and specifically football, right? Just within his practice, certainly impacted many, many lives. So it is devastating and sad and a surprise. And, I think everybody's just kind of coming to grips with it now. But, just based on feedback yesterday, it's going to hit. It is hitting, will continue to hit, a lot of athletes and people in the Penn State athletics community, just really tough. So yeah, it's tough. It's brutal.
Yeah, of course, we extend our condolences to his family and to the Penn State family surrounding him, and we'll keep them in our thoughts and prayers here as you deal with things like loss. No way to get around that. Let's now transition to the rest of the show. Offensive identity is where we're going to start today. So going back to Nate for this, Nate wrote a 3-2-1 over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. By the way, the majority of what we talk about on this show, the majority of our thoughts, the genesis of them are over on the site. So subscribe to the Blue White Illustrated, to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com for just $1. Get access to all of the stuff that we're going to talk about today and more for a week to try us out. And then you can decide if you want to join us for the rest of your life. Because once you get in there, you're not going to want to leave. We got you for life. You wrote about this last week, Nate.
Yeah.
Your 3-2-1. And I kind of want to go through like parts of it because I thought it was a very good retrospective and look forward at the same time on what we learned in Penn State practice. And one of the questions that you asked in your article was, does the Penn State offense have a star? And so I thought this would be a fun way to go about this, is we could have a debate. Each of us pick one guy, and then we make a case for that player as the offensive star. And then if we want to, at the end, we can debate the idea of star or whatever. But to give it a fine point of like, who are the candidates and what does that look like if they are the star? I thought this would be a good way to frame this particular conversation because it's one that Penn State fans have been having for a while looking at this roster. Like the on-paper part of this, I think this has been one of the biggest questions and one that I don't think we got answered because some of those players that are in the conversation were not in spring practice. So Nate, as the generator of the content, I would like to offer you the first pick in our in our draft of who do you think is going to be the offensive star, who can be the offensive star for Penn State football?
I'm gonna immediately break the rules.
Of course. I knew.
I don't even know why you waste your time going through that.
Don't.
Just being
I
like,
don't
hey,
know.
Nate, just do what you want.
Well, I mean, I think the compelling argument is maybe there isn't one, and that's okay, as right, kind of living in the same universe of if they can be above average good, right, and not have to necessarily excel in one area where one person demands the defensive attention from week to week that is like consistent, and have you have to beat us this way. We're going to make you beat us this way. But instead it's kind of like, hey, the tight ends can beat you, the running backs can beat you, the receivers can beat you, not just individually, but as units. I think there's a compelling case that that's potentially good. I listed everybody, right? Just to not offend anyone. During the story, I was like, hey, it could be Rocco, right? And I think Rocco was
Rocco's got to be the number one, right? Like he touches the ball every play.
He does touch the ball every play. I don't. If you look back on 2000s, and look, like Trace is just going to be a natural bridge to all conversation that we have about Rocco, I think. Yeah. Was Trace the star of that offense?
In 2016? Yes. I know Saquon was, but like
I think Saquon
when you think about that offense and the second half comebacks, it had to come through the air. I mean, and look.
And his legs.
Yeah. His legs, but also
the
guys that were on the other end of that ended up in the NFL too. So like,
yeah,
picking a star
that's
like,
the part that's the part I struggle with but to the point,
it's also hindsight, and you had many stars, right? Like,
yes,
sure.
Yeah, but
this one
in that situation, the distributor then becomes the star because you have too many options to pick from. So I think that is so Nate is going with Rocco Becht because he thinks everyone is going to be the star. So that's how we're going to retroactively engineer Nate's point, is that he's picking Rocco Becht as the distributor to be the star of this particular offense. The running backs can get some, the receivers can get some, but Fitz, in certain offenses, you have a hierarchy, right? So positionally or talent-wise, like there are things you want to do with the football. If you're Taylor Mauser, you want to run two tight ends. You want to attack downfield. You want to run the ball. And through that, the channels are open for somebody over another player. So who is it that rises to the top of your mind when it comes to guy that can be star and focal point of what they're trying to do on offense?
All I can think about is, how do I break the rules now? Because outside of the typical Nate Bauer homerism there, you've got the tight ends are the most talented, like the most dangerous, talented group. But when you look at offense as a concept, they're probably the least effective. Like you know your star running backs, you know your star wide receivers. You see what they can do because they can splash big plays. Tight ends, big plays are a little bit more limited because of where they come from, and they're not going to run away from many people. But like that's the most talented group right there. And to be honest with you, I don't know how they're going to handle it in a good way, because Benjamin Bramer is going to be a focal point of this offense. They're going to throw him the ball a lot. But is Andrew Appleway better? I don't know. We didn't see him side by side in the spring. So that's my big question. So, but like if you're looking for, and going back to the original point, as I shift gears in the middle of a sentence, Chase Sowell could be that guy, but like, is he going to be that guy for 12 games a year? I mean, very rarely have we seen receivers come through that 12 games a year. Jahan Dotson did it, of course. KJ Hamler did it, I think, that were the top guy, like that were the guys that were at the top of the receptions list every time. And I went through that a couple of weeks ago on the show, going through Iowa State's production from a receiver standpoint. And it was a line graph that was all over the place. You know, you had guys that were catching 8 passes in a game, and the next game 3 passes led, or 3 receptions led. So like, I think it's all over the place. So I think Chase Sowell is the obvious, like, point to this guy as the highest potential type guy.
Which one are you choosing? Because I have to choose the other one. You're dangerously
stabbing
close to
myself in
taking
the leg with a pencil right now because I have to choose one. Andrew Rappaport.
This is all made up. You can do whatever you want, Fitz.
I can't do it. No, we have to say
this is the fun. Games are fun because there are rules and constraints, and we're playing a game here. It's just it's all for fun. You're right. It's all made up, and it's all for fun.
And it's all on video for people to come back in 6 months and say you are an idiot. Why would you say Andrew Rappaport? He's a tight end that's a blocking, not just a blocking tight end, but But then again, at the end of the season, he was probably Penn State's best offensive weapon. So
yes,
I mean, Katron was, but yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing is like. I think that this running back room can be productive, but like, how can you pick one out of this group? Because you don't know, number one, who's going to get the bulk of the carries. I think Carson Hansen is going to be a much bigger part of this offense than a lot of people maybe want to give him credit because he doesn't do anything spectacular, but he does a lot of things really well. And I think that fits into what Matt Campbell in this offense or Matt Campbell's strategy in this offense is kind of leaning toward. So like, I think that he's going to be a bigger part of that because people were saying Quentin Martin in the chat, and because they know Quentin Martin because he had a really good bowl game too. And, he's from Pennsylvania and all that stuff, but like he was the third backup in the blue-white game. And I think he's the third back right now. I don't think that gap is astronomical, but I think that that's notable how they ran him out there in the spring.
Yeah. A couple people here in the chat. So Christian says Ben Bramer. Jadon says Martin is the most versatile, and I both in the backfield and as a receiver, I'm assuming. Mike says, get the ball to Kobe Howard between coaching staff not wanting Allard to throw an interception. We're not going backwards, but get the ball to Kobe Howard. That's his answer. Sometimes when you read the second half of a sentence and you're like, oh, okay.
I should have just left the first part.
Should have just left it with get the ball to Howard. I am going to. So who did you officially pick, Fitz? I'll just argue.
I went with Rappaport, just because I think he's a dangerous back because he can do a lot of everything. And he's more of a watch the film and, this guy was a star than Saturday afternoon at, if it's a noon kick, 3:30, you're thinking, oh, this guy lit it up. So I think that he might be their best all-around player on offense.
So I am give me 1 second here. I am going to filter for target depth.
It's not a Nate with right graphic, is it?
No. He's lost that privilege. Anyway. He's lost that privilege after the way we started this
after
show.
Picking every single person. I almost took Ryan Barker too. So
okay, so I'm gonna go with Chase Sowell. And here is why. So we can talk about like the standout player, and we can also talk about the star from perception perspective, right? And so to me, the guy who has the best opportunity for both of those things is the ex-receiver is Chase Sowell. So when we look at the way he was targeted last year by week, he had a slow start to the year. But when we look at deep shots in this offense, 2 in week 0, 3 in week 4, 3 in week 5, and starts to pick up steam, 3, 2, 1. He was consistently targeted down the field as the stretch player in this offense last year. Brett Eskelson has that ability. He has that ability too. But this was Chase Sowell's show, right? And so nothing has really changed from that perspective this year to unseat him as that guy. The only difference is he's healthy. And I talked about this earlier this spring, and I think I'm probably going to talk a little bit more about it going forward. He is a guy, because people are curious about this, like, Penn State, how many NFL players they have on the roster right now. He's an NFL player to me. 6'3", 6'4", 210, runs really fast. I don't know the exact 40 time, but he is going to be running in the 4.4s at minimum when he gets to the NFL Combine. He is a deep threat, and they will throw to him regardless of the coverage if they feel like in a one-on-one situation he can get behind the defensive back in the defensive coverage. So it's the opportunity, and it is the situation in which he has that established understanding with the offense. If we go back to a year ago, at this time at Iowa State, he was the talk of spring camp from everything I've learned. And they were very excited about him. Of course, he got hurt during fall camp, and that kind of derailed the start of his season, and it seemed to affect his production throughout the year. So I think there's a lot of good options, Nate. You are correct. There are a lot of good options. But that's why I'm picking Chase Sowell as the guy who I think has the opportunity, which would have the psychological bonus of Penn State fans feeling better about, hey, they finally have a receiver in this offense.
And
The Omari Evans of this offense.
you went and did it.
So
I was going to say go back 2 years to Penn State's camp, and this was Trey Wallace, the conversation that we're having.
Yeah.
But we're broken by Penn State's receiving output in the last couple of years, so we're just kind of there.
So Nate, here's I guess the point. We
just
talked
kidding.
about this.
It was
No. It's a great point, though. It's a great joke. It is because it's built on the frustration of like, okay, so they're gonna scheme up a play for this guy, and it's like I was having a conversation with people on the Blue White Illustrated message board before the show today, talking about explosive plays, and people are tired of hearing about explosive plays because James Franklin and the previous staff harped on this, and you would say we're borderline obsessed about it. But the problem is, for 10 years they were doing that, and nobody cared until the final 2 when they didn't get any. Because the offense the last couple of years could not generate a threat. They could not generate a threat down the field because they didn't have enough speed and they didn't have enough composite talent in one player to generate a threat on a consistent basis. So you go to Omari Evans schemed deep shots versus quarters or cover 3 or whatever it is in order to get those 1 or 2 plays a game where you can attack downfield in a super formulaic way. Like, right? Like, you know what it's going to look like. This offense, it's baked into the identity to attack downfield. So it doesn't have to be like, okay, now we're calling our shot play. It's the idea that the shot play is an omnipresent aspect of the offense, which gives a guy like Chase Sowell more than one opportunity a game to run a route and get open. He might run 6 deep routes and they target him on 2. And so that is, I think, the biggest difference between like Omari Evans is cycling onto the field to run a deep route and everyone knows it's coming, as opposed to like what this is going to try and do in between throwing to the tight ends and running a bunch of 12 personnel and looking like, a caveman offense, the old school offense. So I don't have an off ramp on this. So I have created my own outro for these moments when I just talk myself into a corner and everyone's just staring at me like, the mustache is the worst part of facial hair.
Now, by the
I'm
way,
going to do an
Frank's
unboxing.
You're going to do a
while he
live
does this.
unboxing.
Rocco Becht doesn't have to worry about deductibles. Did you guys go anywhere for spring break in college? Did you actually go on trips, Nate? I got the mustache. I'm on a gondola. We're going through the Italian canals, and I'm just going to take you on a journey of Penn State football camp. Okay,
I missed the mustache. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it may come back. Yeah, in retrospect, it actually didn't look that bad. Let's talk about Antifragile Brewing Company. There's another great off-ramp for when I get too deep into the conversation. Nate, tell me about Antifragile Brewing Company.
Man, my favorite. East Calder Way, the best beer in State College. But not just beer, kombucha, mixed drinks, cocktails. Actually, and I feel like we overlook this. Cocktails created with liquors produced in Pennsylvania. Fitz, correct me on that, but I think that's accurate.
That is correct. That is a Pennsylvania law. They have to do that. So, yeah.
Based on their liquor license. But that's cool, right? It's not Bacardi. There's like actual rum from produced nearby, right, within the state. Yeah. So in any case, Antifragile Brewing Company is awesome. They are our friends. They are our sponsor. And they are a place that we genuinely like. It's not even a question when there is an opportunity for us to ditch our kids and wives. We head down to Antifragile Brewing Company for a beer. And bonus, when we get there, there's typically somebody who watches this show or subscribes to Blue White Illustrated who is there to chat with us and say hi, which makes us always feel really, really good. So Antifragile Brewing Company, East Calder Way, plenty of parking if you have a designated driver, if you're responsible. Just lots of great stuff. Uncle John's cheesesteaks. They're also serving coffee from Rothrock now. They also
love it.
Have a bakery, like Gemelli Bakery there's cookies. if there's another place that you want to go, I just
Yeah,
I think
that
you're
celebrates
wrong.
the
I think
local
you're wrong.
Celebrates local fare in a way that you don't get anywhere else. Rothrock coffee. I've been trying to get Rothrock on this show since we started. It's the only coffee I drink. I would love to talk about Rothrock coffee every single day. So call me. Call me. Also, if you need to recharge and you don't drink coffee and you want to get away, this summer, I got a beautiful place for you to go. How about Bottle Lake in Lakeville, Maine? You don't get more lakey than Lakeville, Maine. So I'm going to tell you about Boulder Point Lake House. It is owned by a Penn State family, a Penn State mom, grad, and son who is a junior at Penn State, which I think at this point means now he's a senior at Penn State because we are now into May. They want you to come and enjoy what they've built, a brand new architect designed house out in the wilderness. It is elite comfort with an elite setting. The vistas, if you're watching here on the YouTube channel, you are directly on an 11 lake chain. So if you like to fish, you're a guy that likes to go out and fish, and your family likes to spend some time outdoors, or you want to get together, connect, play board games, get everyone off the Wi-Fi. They do have Wi-Fi, but like just have a time together out in nature. Check out Boulder Point Lake House. They have a ton of availability, and if you book directly with them, you can avoid some of those upcharges and fees from Airbnb and Verbo and all those other things. So Boulder Point Lake House on Facebook. I will go and link that in the show notes. One last thing I got to tell you about, because this actually somebody on the website, one of our regulars, was looking at this, and it says online that they are not dog friendly. The thing is, they are pet friendly, but cats are destructive. I can tell you that by looking all my furniture back here. Cats are super destructive. They are dog friendly. So if you want to bring your dogs, you want to go out into the wilderness, you want them to enjoy like finding a giant stick out in the woods, your dog can come with you as well. So they are dog friendly, but they are not pet friendly, and there's no way to designate on some of the sites. So check them out. There's way too much information to get to. You got to go check out Boulder Point Lake House, send them a message, and get away for the spring and the midsummer. And then recharge, come back, and we'll talk about Penn State football with you here in the off season. Okay, so one of the other things that Nate wrote about was Matt Campbell's parting words during spring practice. And I'm going to read this to you. I did not cut it just because for time, and also we've played this before. You focused on this quote. In the end, the piece of it is probably the most important. The storm is coming. We're going to have adversity. Are we as tight-knit of a football team that when tough days come, we can fight through down 14? Can we fight through adversity, a bad quarter, a bad half? The key to our success is are we together enough to be able to fight through hard? Why did you select that? Why was that important to you to bring out and discuss in your article?
I think it's extremely important to him. And I think I've seen firsthand on the basketball court what happens when you bring a bunch of people together from different places that don't have a shared history, that haven't been through it together. Mm-hmm. How easy it is to have infighting and disunity and untogetherness isn't a word, but you get the idea. Like it's just, it's just, man, coaching is psychology a lot, and it is just pushing the right buttons at the right times. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's a soft science. It is not right. Like it just, you kind of have to see. And so usually, right, the team, just in general, right? And I think it transcends sports, but particularly in college, you just always had this narrative. Like there was this reliable arc that you could follow for college football programs and college basketball programs where, you know, this class of, right, like the class that you came in with was really important. And you had these, right? And Penn State just had it with the 2022 class. It's a key, like, core identity that you come in together, you grow up together, and then by the time that you're juniors and seniors, you're the identity of the team. Penn State has a little bit of that with Rocco Becht and Brett Eskilton and Carson Hansen, right? There are pieces of that, Bacon and Ebel, like, there for sure. There is some of that. And even those guys know and acknowledge that Carson Hansen, it was an aside. Like, he didn't mean anything by it. And he actually pointed it out. Like, he checked himself as he said it after the blue-white practice. He was like, yeah, like, bringing along the Penn State guys. And it was like, oh, well, he was like, I hate to say that because they're not Penn State guys. Like, there are guys. We're all together. But it's a manufactured togetherness. It has to be. It's on this sped up timeline where you've got to condense 4 years of, good things and bad things, fights in the locker room, and the stuff that you go through that on the backside of it, you say to yourself, oh, that'll never happen again. They haven't had that together. Most of this team has not had that together because it is so cobbled together from so many different places. Yes, the Penn State players have it with each other to a certain extent. Yes, the Iowa State players have it together to a certain extent, but they haven't had those shared experiences. And so I think that Matt Campbell specifically, and to like great time and effort, tried to bring that together as much as they possibly could this offseason, and will continue to do so because like you said, I mean, the storm is cut, right? They're gonna probably lose a game. They're probably gonna have some moments that require a trust in one another that hasn't been earned.
So I'm surprised a little bit because we've had some of these conversations where I think you and I'm not trying to like paint this as a gotcha or anything, or you a big. I'm just curious of your evolution here because you've called some of these things like the Disneyfication of a concept or a storyline, given where we are in the sport, the mercenary aspect that people feel from the transfer portal, and everything you just described as. But if you're good enough, if you're talented enough, if you execute, then some of these things is window dressing. So is it the basketball aspect of this, of trying to put together people from the portal, that really changed your opinion on how talent doesn't always equate to success? Or is it, I guess I just want to probe that a little more. Because I think this is super interesting. I think this is super interesting.
Here's one for you, T. Frank, that's really going to throw you off. I make up the rules as I go along, and all things apply to everything, right? There's gray areas everywhere. I don't think I have ever acted as though there aren't psychological impacts or elements that create or foster success for a team. Like, yeah, of course they do. But also, I feel like there's a realism to when you have the more players who are good at playing football than the other team has, you're more likely to win, right? And especially when they execute at a higher level. It's like groundbreaking stuff, I know. But the combination of those two things, it tends to be important, I think.
Fitz.
I mean, the human emotion is the foundational aspect of this, right? It's not necessarily like grinding everyone together and just being, like I said in the chat, sending them to college or Gettysburg College with Denzel Washington. Like that is like a 10 or 15 minute part of Remember the Titans that accomplishes what is going to take 6 months, right? It's not necessarily just, left side, strong side type thing. It's one of those things where you've got to earn the trust of everyone, including the guys that you brought in. Like that is the other thing here is like, we take that tight end room, for example. Okay. Like obviously Matt Campbell is going to trust Ben Bramer. He's going to trust Gabe Burkle. He's going to trust Cooper Alexander. He's going to have to trust Andrew Rapplier. And what happens if he's the best of the bunch? How does that swing back on Bramer and Burkle that they think that they might not be getting their fair share? Like, everyone's going to be out. I don't want to say out for themselves, but everyone's going to be out looking for the role that they thought they would have. And how does that impact the team, or like the offensive attack as an entire entity? And how do you respond in that situation? We mentioned Kobe Howard. Like, Kobe Howard is a guy who has a ton of potential, and he's done some good things when in there, but like, I don't think he's gone to the level of what we've talked about him being, or what we talked about him fundamentally changing the offense last year or this year. How does he handle that emotionally? He's a sophomore. He's a sophomore in college. Like, this stuff is going to be very difficult for them as they hit adversity, as every team that's come through here, as they hit adversity. It's just a different kind of adversity. So it's picking out which parts of these growth experiences are the actual tangible, important parts, and what are the window dressing of everybody feels great about everybody else. Because that stuff doesn't matter. It's about kind of the 6 days in the building versus the 1 day on the Beaver Stadium turf.
So I guess the part, and I'll throw Kevin Payne's comment in here. He says, I kind of don't buy that. They'll mesh and bond by autumn. It isn't like they're kids. They are young adults. I think the age part is fair in that, like, at what point do you realize it's bigger than you when you're working together as part of a larger goal? Because what we have here in the NFL and in college football is even in high school football, but it's just like, if you're one of those guys, it's pretty obvious you're one of those guys, and that's why they're here on this particular team. But this is a high stakes situation where selfishness is rewarded in a certain sense of the more stats you get, the more plays you make, the more splashes. We just talked about who's going to be the offensive focal point. Like, if Chase Sowell's the offensive focal point and he catches 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns, he's going in the first round of the NFL draft. But if he doesn't, what does that mean? And what is he sacrificing to do what's best for the team so that everyone else can touch the ball? Carson Hansen, does he have all the pressures these guys have to prove they're the guy for the next level, for their career, their money, their pocket? Those are all real things. And the coaching staff, what they need to do is convince those players that it is better for the team and better for you in the long run if you play a role. Defensive tackles. Like, I just did something yesterday about the defensive line, explaining how, odd fronts and 5 techniques and all those things and how it plays in different situations. But it comes back to this idea that the defensive tackles are going to be space eaters a lot in this defense. Now, that is a role that exists in the NFL, but it is not one that gets you noticed, right? It is not one that gets you noticed by people or gets you the opportunity for a scout to go, oh, what could I do with this guy if I featured him? It's their role to be a team player. And how do you get them down 14 to not abandon their job and just do their 1/11th and help you come back and fight in a game? I mean, that's the tactical application of what we're talking about here, is making sure guys don't go rogue and try to make plays for themselves on defense, for example, and actually be a part of the team, on top of the turning on each other and pointing and making and trying to avoid blame. Because if there's one thing that nobody wants, it's to be in trouble, to be the one who's wrong when you fail. So I think that there's an aspect of that as well.
I think we're taking this to like the extremes where that's not, it makes sense conversationally and in the chat. I see it. And the NIL component, looking out for like that kind of like, I think it's what Matt Campbell is saying, and I'm really just kind of regurgitating what he's saying. The point that he's making is football's hard. There are difficult moments in games, and I don't think the NIL component, look, there is plenty of time to worry about touches and like those kind of elements. I think he's saying, and I think I'm echoing it, is during the game, does Rocco Becht's command of the huddle change when the faces staring back at him aren't necessarily all the ones that he's familiar with over, right? And it's not, it's like not a knock on him. It's not a knock on anybody. It's simply an acknowledgement. It is the acknowledgement of Matt Campbell that why they've put this much effort into it this offseason is for those moments, because those moments will come. And once they come, how the team responds to it is going to be interesting. I don't think he knows. I don't think, because it's easy right now. It's the same honeymoon for everybody. Of course they love each other. And of course it's good. And the players and the coaches and all that stuff. Like, yes, it should be good right now, but it's not always going to be good. And the moments where it's not always good will demand something more.
Yeah. I guess this will be my final thought is I guess the point I was driving at is if you feel like you're going to lose and you have not been involved, it's easy to check out. But then you need somebody to make a play on 3rd and 5. And that guy, if he's not fully locked in and believe, how do you stave off the belief of defeat in these moments? How do you continue to believe you can win a game? How do you continue to believe that you matter in the situation, and all of those things factor into what we're talking about here. Very esoteric for us. I appreciate that conversation, that dip into the gray. Here's a more concrete conversation. Fitz, I'm going to come to you with this one because you and I have talked a lot about this with the linebackers, the depth chart, how it all works together. Nate had a great question, which is which linebacker comes off the field? Because Tony Rojas is coming back, and they have 3 starting linebackers in that particular equation with Kooper, Ebel, and Caleb Bacon, and Tony Rojas. So in a 4-2 defense that can play 4-3, how do you view the linebacker pecking order and or priorities? How do you make that work with everything we just talked about? This is a perfect transition between guys that want to go to the NFL, guys that have talent, want to be featured in the defense that might have to be sharing, because all 3 of those guys could go to the NFL this year if they have a strong season.
Yeah, and it's how do you make yourself versatile enough that you are one of those chess pieces that Danton Lynn has to use, whether it's a 4-3 defense, a 4-2 defense where you're playing it in stand-up defensive end, where you're trying to, I don't want to say earn your reps, but make them take you off the field. So I think Ebel's going to be the starter in the middle. I think that's pretty well set. He is. I don't want to say they're most trusted, but they said some really nice things about him after the spring. I don't think it's window dressing. I also think he's your green dot, which matters quite a bit in terms of who stays on the field. And I think Tony is the most talented of the bunch, the highest upside of the bunch. Of course, he's coming off the injury, but he's going to be, I think, fine by the time they get to camp, and maybe ease him in a little bit. What's interesting to me is, Bacon's played a lot of football. Kel Brazina's played a lot of football. I have Bacon starting at the Sam, but is the Sam a thing right now? Is that a situation where he's just, I don't want to say listed as a starter to put him on the front line there, but I think those 3 are going to play a lot. I think Brazina's going to play, and then Tasha's going to get back in there. So Penn State all of a sudden knock as hard as you can on whatever wood you can find right now. Okay, from a numbers perspective at linebacker, Cam Smith in there had a good spring as well. So they've got an opportunity to play a bunch of guys and then also play them on special teams as well, which is going to help. So I don't know, but I would go with Ebel Rojas number 1. I would go with Bacon number 2. Brazina he's a Mike, so he's probably behind. He's probably behind Ebel. But when we broke down our depth chart, it was Rojas, Tash, and Cam Smith at the wheel. So there's juggling going to be going on here. But in a good way, in the sense that we're talking about the tight end room, which is actually pretty similar when you think about those 3 linebackers coming in from Iowa State. John Klosterman also there as well, but I don't think he factors in as much as those other 3. And then you've got your Andrew Rappleyea and Tony Rojas there. So that's going to matter at some point. And I'm fascinated by the dynamic of, we think these guys, so Rappleyea, Rojas, Ivan Kemaju, we think these guys that we've known at Penn State for a year, 2, 3 sometimes, are really talented guys. And inherently, I think there's some bias there that we think they're better because they were here, like
Right.
recruiting rankings and, standout performances already in the Big Ten. Like that's going to come through, and I'm not going to skirt around that. But how do you work through that? How do you balance it out? And Gabe Burkle's a really good player too. Kel Brazina, pretty good player too. Might not be starters, but they're going to have to factor them in there somewhere. So that is the big question that I have with linebackers. Just how do you get them all in there, which is a much better question than who's going to be able to step up and wedge themselves in there and be serviceable, which is the question we had last year.
Yeah. It's interesting because if you look at, there's a symbiotic relationship with Tony Rojas and Caleb Bacon, where if you're dividing the roles that a linebacker can have as a pass rusher, a coverage player, and a run defender, they overlap well in terms of Caleb Bacon is a pass rusher, linebacker, run stuffer. Tony Rojas has the ability to rush the passer. Like, that's the great thing about him is he could be a 3-level player, but like his specific skill that he has is that he is elite in coverage and he is a good run defender. So you can make some things work, and the Sam thing confused me for a bit, but it also then made sense once I thought about it. Having the option to have those 3 guys out there, the last thing is like when you pair that with the defensive front and what they want to do there in some sub packages, they have a lot of options, but that does like then who's going to be on the field against teams that like to run the ball? What's your most efficient grouping? Whether you play 5 defensive linemen or you play 3 linebackers, that's a choice they got to make too.
It's the odd man out theory here, where you go to every level of that defense and you look at defensive ends. Eziogu and Kemaju look like, I would say, pretty solid in terms of you can project them as starters, but also Max Granville is a guy that we want to factor in there because we think we know something about Max Granville, even though he's coming off of a couple of different injuries. So like who's the odd man out now? Defensive end's different because you've got 3 down guys. You've got guys that can rush the passer. Granville can obviously rush the passer. So
it's easier to cycle there too.
It's easier to cycle. Linebacker we just talked about. And then you go to the secondary. You didn't see Jonathan Kooper or Jeremiah Cooper at all this spring, and he was a guy that was an All Big 12 pick 2 years ago. How does he mesh with Zion Tracy? So we look at Jeremiah Cooper as a guy that played safety at Iowa State, transitioned to corner, got hurt playing corner. So you're thinking, okay, hybrid guy, nickel, right? Zion Tracy's right there. Zion Tracy didn't take any outside corner reps in the spring, or didn't take many at least, and has also played safety. So like, how do you juggle? I think we kind of write out Jamison Patton here, but that's a guy that they trust a lot. Like he's been around and he's been a pillar for those guys for them at Iowa State the last couple of years. So like, it's a good problem to have. You're going to do quite a bit of juggling. You're going to do quite a bit of figuring out what the matchups say. But I'm fascinated to see how it plays out. And like I said, it's always good to have too many players than it is to not have enough. So I think that's where Penn State is right now. Now injuries will play a role in that as well. Hopefully we're still having this conversation in November. But we know that's not going to be the case because football is a bit rough sometimes.
2 things, like the video and subscribe here to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel if you're enjoying our conversation about spring football, what we learned and what we're still projecting forward. We're going to get to a lot of other stuff, but it just super helps. It's super helpful if people that are watching here live enjoying the conversation. If you like the video, you drop a like on your way out whenever that is, or right now, helps us with the almighty algorithm, which everyone is fighting every single day. Also, we need to get to some recruiting, so Nate's going to take a quick timeout. We'll bring him back for the mailbag portion of the show, and we're going to get to Fitz's recruiting update. It's recruiting season, Nate. You know that. Fitz, busy weekend last week after we were done with the recruiting show. Penn State got a surprise commitment on Thursday night, and then they got another one on Friday. We haven't had a chance to talk about that yet together. Of course, we did our committed videos, which you can check out here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Stanley Montgomery, a top 100 defensive tackle, and then what I think is maybe a secret gem in this class in Jamir Dean, a wide receiver from Tennessee, committed. My thoughts are already out there. So I want to get your thoughts on those players and what you thought of this weekend's recruiting. So we're going to get through the recruiting news as well, but just wanted to, off the top, get your thoughts about those 2 players.
Yeah, Stanley Montgomery will start there, committed on Thursday. on Thursday afternoon. That's a big get for Penn State because we take a look at that position. And when you have guys at that size and legit 6'3", I think we had him 299, so 300 pounds. When you have those guys in your region, especially in your state, you got to lock them down. And Penn State was able to do that. This is a guy that we thought would commit back in January, February, following his Syracuse decommitment. But he was, I don't want to say strung it out, but he played out his recruitment a little bit longer. I think he came down to Penn State and Kentucky, and Penn State was able to seal the deal there. Number 100 national, number 104 in in our rankings. So top 100 on the fringe of 100. I think maybe just a tad high in terms of what what's out there. But again, when you're a big body that can move like that, doesn't matter if you're number 100, doesn't matter if you're 250. You got to lock that down. If you're Penn State, they did a really good job doing that. Akaka Malloy was very, very instrumental in this one. We talk about all his connections out west and everything like that, but he walked into a 300-pounder, a 6'3", 300-pounder that can move in his backyard, and he was able to lock this one down. So I think that's a really good job by Penn State. Really sets them up with some leverage moving forward on the interior defensive line and kind of all over the defensive line, because you've got guys that are potential hybrid guys. Of course, Carter Blattner's in the class as well. Zamar Tukes from Rochester was in this weekend for an unofficial visit. That's very important. They don't host a ton of guys right now. Most coaches are on the road. So if a kid of that caliber, 4-star kid, wants to come in for the weekend, bring his mom, that's a big deal. You accommodate him, you make that one work. So I think that things trending positively there, but also you've got some leverage. Penn State's probably going to take 2, maybe 3 defensive tackles if it works. We talked about Aniti Paiva. Sorry, Diego's in my head there with that one, but you've got opportunities for guys nationally to sort of push back a little bit right now. They talked about trying to get Paiva committed before official visits. Not sure if that happens, but all of a sudden Tukes visits. So you see these little things popping up, and everyone has an effect on everyone because everyone's watching everyone. Because not only does it mean a scholarship spot taken or a roster spot taken, which used to be the math on this. You used to say, well, they're going to take 3 corners and they've got 2. So I got to jump on that. But also they're prioritizing with their funds what they're going to do with that position. And if you commit third, you might not get as much as the guy that committed second. So I think that stuff matters when you're pushing on that leverage. So Stanley Montgomery, getting him in the class gives you a little bit of a chance if you're Malloy to push back, really. And I hate saying that because it's don't pressure kids into making a decision, especially if they want to make the right decision.
It's a negotiation now, right? So there is certain amounts of leverage has to be a thing on both sides, or else you get into intractable situations.
Yeah, I could not have said it better myself. If you're going to talk about the kids using that leverage, we're going to be upfront and say, hey, programs have leverage too. They can use it, and they're using it right now at a couple of different positions, including defensive tackle. So I think that that's a very good get at a. I don't want to say it was a litmus test for this class because this is a guy that had a good offer list, but maybe not the Ohio States and the Notre Dames and all that kind of stuff. But that's going to be a linchpin of your class. It's similar in a sense to Ryan Robbins. I came on a couple of weeks ago and talked about how important I thought Ryan Robbins was for this class because there's not a ton of those guys walking around. So Montgomery's a good pickup.
Yeah.
Dean followed on Friday with his commitment. Again, Penn State has many holes to fill all over this roster, and you can get faster and more athletic. Of course, he had a prior connection with Kashif Moore from when he was at UConn. T. Frank, where are we at on Dean? I know you said hidden gem type thing. Charles Power rated him an 89, which is the highest 3-star you can get, with 4-star consideration certainly being a thing next time we do our big updates. Are we missing something here? In terms of looking at his offers, and I hate saying that because I'm the one that tells people don't look at offer lists because they're so misleading, because Ohio State can throw out offers, whoever can throw out offers.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this one was much more muted than I think the tape saw. He high jumped State last week. He ran a 10.8 last week. The athletic numbers are there. He's not 6'3" like he said he was, but he's not that far off. So what do we miss?
And that still plays in this offense. I feel that this way about Ben Whitver last year, but more so about Dean in terms of he's one of my favorite recruiting prospects I've seen at receiver in a long time, because it's not just the athleticism he produces on the field. He has good hands. I think for the routes that he's asked to run, he runs them well. Maybe he doesn't have the exposure to a full route tree, but a lot of guys in high school don't. He's got the production. He's got the size. He's got the track numbers. Like, unless it's just kind of like I'm coming in this late in terms of the understanding who he is as a prospect. If all of this information came out in the last like 6 months or 3 months or whatever it might be, like he was a late bloomer, right? That kind of makes sense. But for Penn State to jump on this so early and for everyone else to not be aware of him, including Tennessee, who he fits into that offense really well. Yeah, I'm also like, I'm a little nervous because I'm out here saying like, I think he's one of the best recruits they've had at receiver in a long time. And I felt better that Charles also said that. Like I found that out after I said it on the video. I was like, oh, thank goodness somebody saw that too. But yeah, it's a very strange recruitment in an era where we don't have a lot of hidden gems anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of times when we have those conversations about what are we missing, we're seeing guys that are just crushing the competition and you're not sure what they are, but then they don't have the documented times and stuff like that. I mean, he had a 10.8 last week, and I'm not sure if that was FAT, but like he's got some sub 11 second FAT 100s. Like that's moving right there at 6'1 plus. So like he's got a lot of things that check out. The 6'8 high jump checks out, like the explosionness. So, and this is a very unfair thing to do to Penn State fans because we've got a premonition of how his career has gone so far. But like you look at Peter Gonzalez, and it's kind of a similar
situation.
That's
exactly who I thought of. That's exactly who I thought of. Yes.
Good. So I'm not on an island here. So same size, same limited root tree, if we talked about, but also same kind of numbers that he was putting up in terms of athletic verification numbers. Now, it's not fair because Peter's been hurt his entire career at Penn State, but that was a guy I know you liked quite a bit.
Yes, absolutely love Peter Bork, and I still do. Like, I still think the talent is there. It's just, is he? I can say it. Like, I don't know.
No, you can't. You said Peter
Bork.
Can't. No, you said Peter Bork.
Oh, that's because you
have Bork on the mind. You just texted me about
Bork. 2 ahead. Yes,
yeah.
I'm ahead in the transition. Peter Gonzalez, huge fan of Peter Gonzalez and his talent. Also a huge fan of Peter Bork and his talent. So quick thing here. We got to get to the mailbag. Got to get Nate back on the show. Where quarterback recruiting. Blah. What's going on?
Still there. Penn State still without a quarterback in this class. I don't think it's going to be very long, whether it's Peter Bork or Will Wood. It seems like those two guys coming down to it. I know Penn State really, really big fans of Will Wood, but of course Peter Bork is the gem. Like he's the guy that we talk about as the 4-star guy. They're going to visit both of them in the near future. We talked about that a little bit on the Blue White Illustrated message board. We'll get into that maybe a little bit later as well. But it's an interesting situation because we just 5 minutes ago talked about the leverage that Penn State has in terms of recruiting defensive tackles. Well, I think that Peter Bork is using his leverage right now, or his agent. He's got an agent. It's okay to say he's got an agent that's using his leverage right now to figure out the best deal for him, the best fit for him. That is, I don't want to say a warning sign, but because you got to know the fit too. Like it's not just going to be about the number $1 sign or the number one offer that you get out there, but Georgia's still certainly in that mix. Virginia Tech certainly still in that mix, and Penn State as well. So I think the longer it goes, the more likely fit for Penn State is Will Wood. And I think that's going to be something that plays itself out in the next week or so.
All right, we'll have much more on the BWI Live recruiting show coming up on Thursday. And, of course, if there is a commitment that pops between then and now, check back here on the YouTube channel for our committed video series. We'll have a recap of that player, their journey to Penn State, and what we think of them as football players. I still need to correct my Stanley Montgomery take from earlier. Don't have time to do that now, so I'll have to get to that Thursday. So let's get now to the BWI Mailbag. So our first question here from the Blue White Illustrated message board. Great time to remind you can subscribe to the site and you can get your question featured here if you answer the call in the BWI mailbag thread. Dave wants to know, breakout player on offense and defense. He said thank you for your time and all that stuff otherwise because it, the formatting of the question here is a little more demandy than that. He is a nice guy. We've already covered the offense and kind of who could be the offensive stars. So let's go to defense. Nate, who are the guys top of mind that you think could be breakout players for this defense in a similar way to we talked about the offense?
Max Granville is the first that comes to my mind, so I'll go with it. I think he's.
All right.
I think if he can get healthy, and I think he can. I think he will. Then I put it this way: part of the dynamic of this question is who has a window, right? Who has the opportunity, and I do think at defensive end specifically, there is a very, very open window for someone who makes splash plays, who we think about and talk about.
Yeah, there's a very specific need and role available for a guy like Max Granville. I'm going to go with, this is tough because I think the safety room, there can be a lot of answers there depending on the play, but I'm just going to go again with like where fans' minds end up. And I'm going to go with Marcus Neal because I think he's going to be around the ball a lot. They're going to play, I would bet a significant sum of no money that they're going to play a single high defense a good bit. They're going to play with a safety in the box, and they're going to attack with those players, both the run and the pass. So Marcus Neal's going to get an opportunity to blitz. He's going to get an opportunity to get tackles. Jaquan Brisker-esque type numbers could be available, even if I don't think like he has the speed and the range to be a complete safety in the deep third specifically. Like, you know, that still is something he can prove in this defense. But at 218 pounds, the guy is he's a pseudo linebacker, so I think if he has pseudo linebacker numbers, that makes a lot of sense. Fitz, do you have a breakout player on defense?
Is Darius Dixon? Does he count?
Yeah, for sure.
I think he's great. Like I think he's a really talented guy, and both of those corners on the outside and Jamir Joseph as well really have a chance to make some plays on the ball and get the ball in their hands. Like I think that this defense is going to be very good in terms of helping each other out in the secondary and getting their hands on the ball. And I'm gonna go with that. So I like Darius Dixon a lot. I think he's a professional, right? Like we talk about some guys that have come through and like they're going to handle their business. And this kid's from California, did not have to come across the country, did not have to stay across the country. He had certainly a bunch of interest from everywhere. So there's a lot to like in terms of what he brings to the table. I think he's just one of those mature guys. Man, I'm really just hitting the cliche barrel really hard right now.
Lunch box.
No, he does not have a lunch pail.
Oh.
We're not going to get into that. No, I think Darius Dixon is a really, really talented player. And I'm very interested to see. T-Frank, I want to get your thoughts on it at some point as well. Like how Jeremiah Kooper fits into all this. If you've got 6 defensive backs for 5 spots.
Yeah. I'm still thinking about that one. Here's the thing. I'll answer that by answering it this way. Would we be talking about Zion Tracy if they had Dejon Lane on the roster and somebody you felt like was a professional coverage player in the back end? Because the guys that we talked about, Neal and everything we set up there, those are guys that are good run defenders who we have some questions about their coverage ability. Is Jeremiah Kooper going to come back and be the free safety? Like, just that's the answer, is just the free safety, and we do less of the Zion Tracy flipping roles. That is one opportunity, and then the other opportunity is like they just rotate at that position between those two players. That's where I'm at right now, and I don't have a better answer than that. Mike says, you guys do a great job. Can't wait till summer practice and we get a better feel for the season. Appreciate you with that, Mike. Appreciate you for being in the chat and donating the channel. You don't ever have to donate the channel to get your thoughts on the show, but we deeply appreciate when you guys do, because that goes directly to supporting us doing this show 3 days a week and supporting the BWI Live enterprise, which is maybe I was going to call it my baby, but like we don't need to get that too close to home there here live on air. Last thing here. This one, Nate, I'll come back to you for the end. What has most impressed you about Campbell and his staff so far? What has you most concerned? Appreciate you. That's from K-Mac. What's impressed you about interacting with them so far?
About I don't know if it's interacting with it. I just think they have a plan. Right. There's a way that they do things, and there's a way that they approach things that I think that they're open, certainly, to there's an acknowledgement, right, that's implicit of they're in a different environment, they're in a different program from where they've been in the past, but there is they got a plan. They got a plan, and they're I don't know, it sounds a little cliche, but just like kind of leaning into who you are and not trying to change that. I think that there's especially at the onset of things, you can try to be everything to everyone, and I don't know. It just seems to me like he and his staff are close knit, right? In terms of the inner circle, they're close. It's fairly formulaic in terms of these guys who have success at this level and to this degree. But like, you got to have people around you that you trust, and then with those people, you have an avenue that you attack things, and it seems like they're doing that, and to great success.
That was going to be my answer. Fitz, do you have something you want to add to that one of what you've seen so far?
Yeah, I think the sticking to the plan thing bleeds over to the recruiting side, and that's where I kind of spend more of my time right now. You look at one of my favorite sayings is sticking to the evaluation. They've done that, and we said a couple of months ago they could have gotten guys on board just to have guys on board. They did not do that, and it was a fairly painful time, I think, for Penn State fans through February and March to figure all that, figure out where all that's going to go. Now they have 14 commits in the class of 2027. And T-Frank, I made a joke like 2 months ago about talking about having too many guys in the class right now. And we're not going to do that. But it's the second most nationally behind Oklahoma with 21. So that's pretty remarkable how they've been on this run. And they didn't get forced into taking some of these guys or taking these guys. Yeah,
it's been really interesting to get to know how all of their thought process over the last 5 months at this point. And we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to do great reporting over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. These guys do an awesome job. And we'll be back tomorrow to discuss more of what Penn State football, what we learned about spring practice. We'll have the mailbag now that we're in the offseason without spring football. We'll have more of the mailbag throughout the week on each show. Nate, what's up?
We didn't answer the what concerns you question.
Well, all right. What concerns you?
Too many people like him.
He's too friendly?
No, I'm teasing.
All too square. What?
He does not instill enough fear.
too likable. I do there. I'm kind of pulling back the curtain on what I actually think. I think that if you look around the sport, there is a consistency with the highest levels of winning being absolute psychopaths. And I would make the argument that Matt Campbell seems like pretty well adjusted. he doesn't seem like a complete lunatic. So, that's
your concern.
That's that would be my slight hesitation. Projecting for the future is like, man, I'm not sure that he's mean enough, but we'll see.
I was gonna go with like, are they gonna have too many bodies on the defensive line? Are they gonna be too obsessed with stopping the run? But yeah, niceness. Yeah. All right.
Fitz.
No, Fitz? Waiting for T-Frank to play the mustache roll again.
Yeah, I was about to. It got awkward there.
Recruiting side, regional connections, still got to work on them. Like I think he's done a really good job. The staff has done a really good job in putting together a class of 2027, but this is a long-term build. This is not just picking and choosing guys and then, moving on. So you talk about going into bigger programs in the region, North Jersey, Philly, DMV, all these places are, I don't want to say factories, but they are where the most talent lives in the Northeast. You're going to have to find the talent few and far between them, which I think they're really, really good at, but also recruiting some of these big schools and being a player and like reestablishing Penn State as a 1A option, and to some of these guys in the region.
So that will do it for today. Nate, thank you for cleaning that up. That I breezed by the second half of that. We hit 60 minutes and I was like, I heard the music playing, and now I actually have the music playing. Like the video. Help us out on that end. Appreciate everyone being here. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you enjoyed the show. We'll be back tomorrow with more 10 a.m. on the BWI Live show. Appreciate you being here. We'll talk to you then.